precious.
We're live, and I am learning so much about this going live.
Podcasting can be very stressful. I learned that along my road because I've been podcasting for 4 years. And, like, for example, this week I was sick and I didn't release any podcasts because I always record a message.
Mm,
And this same thing 2 years ago would have had me freaking out, but now I just let it, everything happens on God's timing exactly the way it's supposed to. That's if you can learn to live your life that way, the majority of the time, it relieves so much pressure from the day to day. You're just out there having fun and living life and figuring stuff out.
I
I
love
think
it.
people can
I love
appreciate that.
Of course, of course, and I'm sure I'm coming off terrible on these videos because the quality of the Wi-Fi has been insanely terrible, and I I am pretty much learning just like you have fun because life is already so serious, and I'm like, I don't want it to be so serious. And if it's super imperfect with our interview, then rather conversation not interview, then let it be. So I am uh, super excited to um, to um, to have you on my show, and I want the world to know who is Ruben. Bring us back in time.
Yeah, we're gonna have fun today, and we can go as deep as you want. I'm a completely open, transparent book, and I have a lot of interesting stories of my background. We can go right into business. We can go into like how I became spiritual. We can do whatever you want.
I mean, if I'm asking you right now, who is Ruben? Like, what comes to mind? What answer comes to mind? Ruben, the happy friend. Ruben, the serious professional. Like, describe
Hmm.
Ruben to the world.
Yeah, I guess I wear a lot of hats and a lot of different faces depending on who I'm with. But it's an interesting question. Like, what do you want to project yourself as? And I think in the kind of professional or maybe even LinkedIn space, the thing that I would want to be known as if I were to die today and be broadcasted about on LinkedIn is somebody who's trying to self actualize, to become a better version of himself, but have fun along the way. Right. So I think that's the typical description of where, like when I listen to my audio affirmations of my intention statement. It's all about what I want to create, but not necessarily from the mind model. It's from the heart model. Like, am I worthy of all these crazy things that I want to do? Am I worthy of being a father? Am I worthy of raising $25 million of capital on a yearly basis? Am I good enough to be a mentor for other people that are interested in raising capital? Do I deserve to own 10,000 built to rent units? And I'm already starting to get on the way, right? We're building 475 houses right now. I think the main thing is like, can we have fun and just be relaxed and be at peace, right? Because that's what my main mentor, Wayne Dyer, likes to talk about, right? Because he
Mm,
used to he used to be all like, it's all about the accomplishments in his early days, and then later in life, you could see that there was a shift in the quality of the content that he was creating, and it became more about like manifesting and connecting with God and living from peace and attracting abundance. And
mm.
I want to live along those lines as much as I can, whenever I can.
You know,
Not always that easy, right?
if it was easy, it wouldn't be worth it. But you explained it so beautifully, Ruben. And what comes to mind is how long did it take you to get to the point where you handle pressure in a peaceful way? Because
Mm.
I know for a fact that it wasn't always like this.
No, I wouldn't even say that I've mastered that by any means. There's definitely times that I do not live in peace and I am very stressed out. But I think in a public setting, a lot of times it's my natural kind of like go-to happy place. I think that's why I love podcasting, is because I can kind of like shut off all the pressure that's going on and just kind of hang out, right? I think it's probably why I love podcasting and being in this kind of a setting, because it's very easy to wake up and the first thing you think of is business instead of like, just relax. Like you're already running to the meeting, trying to get started before you have even gotten out of bed, and it's not the right way. So for whatever reason, I think I'm a nocturnal person. I've been that way since I was a kid. And the later the day goes, the more relaxed, the more creative, the more at peace I become. But in the morning, I can be a wreck. I can be an emotional wreck. You can ask my wife; she'll be the first to tell you that I'm very dramatic. Just like a Mexican soap opera, I can go there. At times, but she'll also tell you that I can be very funny and in some unusual ways. So it's just trying to figure out, like, in any given moment, can you step out of your ego and step into spirituality? And I have not
Mm.
been that way for the majority of my life. My father died when I was relatively young, when I was 7, and I was not a big fan of the Catholic Church or the Catholic grade school that I went, and I blamed God for, like, how could God take away a young little boy's father, right? Like I was blaming and angry, and I went through high school rebellious and like a vandal and getting suspended and doing stupid things, right? And then over time, because I wanted to be an entrepreneur and I knew that there was great things in store for me, a lot of entrepreneurs have to go through the kind of like the personal development space. And that's really where I started picking up, oh, things happen for you, not to you. And I started to reevaluate the way that I look at life and stop blaming things and just trying to look, because I had heard stories about like people that had been raped or grew up in a horrible environment, and they became extremely successful and they used that background to make them stronger. And I was like, oh my God, like, is that really even possible for me? So I got excited about the concept of like, you know, maybe not having a father growing up and missing out on that time with him. There's something to be said about that, because I instantly never wanted to do that to my children. So I got into longevity and cancer research, and I learned all these things and how to become independent. And I would have never done that if I had just been coddled and babied by my father, right? So I think it was very similar with Wayne Dyer. He wanted, I think he came on to this planet so that he could learn how to self-actualize and teach other people to do it. And if he was going to express how to become an independent thinker, independent of the good opinions of others, as Abraham Maslow would say, then it made sense for him to have to grow up in an orphanage and then learn how to become an independent thinker, right? So he
Mm.
used those same kind of concepts to make himself stronger. And I just love that kind of concept.
Mm. So legacyacquisitions.com.
So that's my business. Yeah, I'm in a couple of businesses. I'm getting ready to launch a capital raising mentorship program. I like to consider myself a marketer, right? So I see the world through marketing lens and goggles. I like brands. I like marketing. I like talking to people. I have an entrepreneurial spirit. It took me a long time to be able to focus myself, because people of my personality type have shiny object syndrome. And I used to have like 4 or 5 businesses and never be successful at any of them. And at some
Mm.
point I was like, I had a mentor at a men's leadership seminar. He came up to me and he's like, hey, you're trying to do this cancer research thing. You got a t-shirt company. You're trying to do real estate. You're trying to do network marketing. Like, dude, you got all these irons in the fire. None of them are going to get hot unless you focus on one thing. And it took me a couple of years to really process that. But I knew that I wanted to get into real estate. I knew that I loved marketing. I figured that if I could learn and master capital raising to the greatest extent possible, that my services would always be in demand. So I was like, you know what? I don't care what Bitcoin, what gold, what opportunity comes my way, what e-commerce. I'm not going to let myself be distracted or derailed until I master this one thing. And ever since then, like I've been getting stronger and stronger at this real estate thing and this capital raising thing. And I still to this day, when somebody's just like, oh, you know what, you can take your platform and you can help people raise for Bitcoin, or you can help people do this, you can do that. I'm just like, dude, I'm not going to get into any of it. Like, I'm happy to share what I've learned and interview people and share that knowledge with the world. But I myself am singular of focus until I master this thing. And if it takes me 10 years to do it, just like it did for me to graduate college, then I'll do it. I don't even care how long it takes. If it takes me 20 years, I'm not going to give up because I'm singular of focus and I won't let anything distract me. But things happen, right? Like, so I have a couple aunts that were diagnosed with terminal cancer. My air conditioner broke and we don't have enough money to fix it. So we came up with some creative solutions, and there's financial problems. And in real estate, a lot of times, regardless of if you're an appraiser or a broker or a syndicator, you don't make money every day. It's not like a constant paycheck. You get these big paychecks like every 6 months to a year. And in my case, even longer, because developments take like 3 years to build a subdivision, right? So I'm not going to get rich for like another couple years while we're building these suckers. So what do you do in the meantime? It's a very stressful kind of situation. If you can learn to manage that stress and just chill out and let things happen on God's timing, even when like you're in the face of the storm, like, and everything is just like a horrendous kind of like gathering of perfect storm that's just beating on you. If you can figure out how to stay calm,
Mm,
the storm always goes away. It every single time, it always does. You just got
mm,
to be patient and let, I mean, what I'm seeing and trying to experience myself is like, if I can just be at peace and try and figure out how to go through it, God every single time has figured out a way to put me on the right track, even in the face of despair, right?
mm-hmm,
So if that's a message that I can share with anybody, that is that makes me feel good, and like I add some value to the world, because I think a lot of people, whether they're on this show or not, or just me having that energy, they can appreciate that because they struggle with that themselves, and I do. So I'm not trying to put on this face that like I'm at peace all the time, but at least I have some mentors in my ears, like Wayne Dyer. Even though he's passed, I still listen to him on a regular basis,
mm,
that help me kind of calm down. And when I neglect to listen to these affirmations, or when I neglect to do personal development or read good books, then everything starts to like become crappy, right? So that's the
oh,
one thing that I've kind of been thinking about these last couple of weeks, is like professional athletes, they hone their craft every single day, right? They're in the gym, they're throwing up basketballs, whatever it is that they do. And for us entrepreneurs, like our training, our daily mindset thing is like we gotta manage our state. And one of the ways that we do that is through like miracle morning processes, which I'm not totally into because I'm more of a night person. But you can apply some of those things at nighttime if that's your thing, like it is for me. And then if you are training your mind, it helps quite a bit, because it's very easy to stop or get distracted or have family events, or whatever the case may be, get in the way of life,
mm.
and distract you. And that's kind of like where I'm spending some of my time, as I'm trying to self actualize on my journey to the greatest extent that I can.
I love it. I love it so much. And for everyone who's listening right now or will listen to our show into the future, Ruben and I met at a networking event. I believe it was in LA.
It was in
LA,
Torrance, California
California.
in March of this year, I think.
March of this year. That's right. And we got into these conversations, networking, and I hear that Ruben has this podcast. It's called like the Capital Raising Show, right, Ruben?
The Capital Razor show, yeah.
And of course, for people who know me, I am that person that always raises her hand. I call it virtual hand, physical hand, and I am always asking, how can I attend the show? What are the requirements? would I be someone that would bring value to your audience? And from the beginning, Ruben was very intentional with the conversation. He's not someone that's just going to give like false hope. He explained it to me that it's about the capital raising, and this is what it is about. Because oftentimes we may end up in some podcast where we thought that it was going to be A and it ends up being B, and you wonder, wait a second, maybe I don't even belong here. And that's why I love so much about Ruben, because he was extremely like overprotective of his podcast.
I
And
am
it's
very picky about who comes on there.
you are
So,
not picky, you're overprotective. And you know, when someone lets you know that, look, there's like 7 walls before you get to join our podcast, and I was like, I accept the challenge, I will
It's
be on
it's
your
it's it's
podcast.
it's not that tricky. There's a lot of people that don't qualify. There's just one requirement, really. Like, do you raise capital and can you
That's
share with people about how to raise capital? It's not that complicated, right? It doesn't matter where you are in the journey. It doesn't matter if you're Grant Cardone or if you're somebody that's just thinking about starting to raise capital. You're welcome on the show. But somebody that's like trying to teach, like, let me teach you how to raise capital on LinkedIn. Oh, do you actually syndicate yourself? No, but I like have all these systems, and then I'm just like, no, like you have to be able to express what has gone on in your mind as you challenge yourself with this process. And that doesn't matter where you are in the journey. As long as you are trying to figure it out, you're welcome to come on my show. But don't be like, hey, I want to talk about cost segregation or loans on somebody's show, when like my promise to my audience is like, we're here to explore learning this thing, this universe called capital raising. That's the intention of the show. And if that's not your intention, then go find some other show where you know it makes more sense for you.
But I loved how transparent you were, and I feel like everyone out there needs a Ruben in their life, because we are we are constantly, Ruben, in all of these networking events and learning the art of networking as we progress, and that with that comes the doubt, the questioning, who's
Yeah.
real, who's not real, who is sharing who they truly are versus who they want to be in the future. Because we have conversations with people that are already in the future, and there I am, I'm like, okay, but what about present? Exactly to your point, like, are you raising capital currently? Have you raised in the past? Not necessarily. You're looking to raise capital in the future, because when you do that, then you're welcome on the show. But like, this networking, it's an art of its own, and I absolutely love it, and I can talk about it for years and years, and I would not be able to stop. That's how much I love it. But for you, Ruben, when you are in these networking events, um, what is the number one reason that you go to that event? Like, what do you look for? Like, what's important to you that this event brings to the table in order for you to maximize on your time there, like being
Yeah.
fully intentional?
Yeah, I think I'm a little clumsy still, but my intention is to make friends first and foremost. And I think that comes from my first, well, my first syndication capital raising experience. Best said, they brought me on board as an apprentice because I had raised capital for small multifamilies and they needed some help raising capital. And immediately they started pressuring me. They're like, hey, we have a deal. Like, we need the money. Where's it at? We brought you on to bring capital. And there's all this pressure, right? Like, hey, we want you to perform. And I'm just like, dude, I can't perform. I don't have a database. Like, do you have people in your database that you want me to reach out to? Because I don't have anybody in my database that. And like, when you can become at peace that it takes time and have, like Richard Wilson likes to say, a medium to long-term vision for your business. And if it's capital raising, medium to long-term vision for your capital raising, then you can be at peace, not having the pressure of like trying to, sell something to somebody, and just go to a networking event and be like, oh, let's see what happens. What maybe like what your approach is like, where can I add value to somebody? Oh, as soon as they tell me that they're a podcaster, let me go find them 3 guests so I can add value. Or as soon as they tell you this, I'm in development, or I'm a family offices that likes
Mm.
technology and artificial intelligence. Oh, I just met this other doctor. He's into the same thing. Let me introduce you to them. And you go from the mind. This is what one of my coaches, Coach Trevor McGregor, told me. He's like, when you go to a conference, go there to add value, not to receive value. Right. And I was like, well, I do that on LinkedIn. I do that in other places. I do that on my podcast. How come I don't think about doing that when I go to a conference? And I'm just like, that is so brilliant, right? Because if you just go there, let's see if you can help somebody instead of receive something and just see what happens. The universe naturally, through this order or this what is it called? It's like the universal law of compensation. And
Mm.
it basically says that you get paid based off of the amount of work that you put in. What is it? I forget. That it's
Wow, that's a
then
beautiful
okay,
one.
so here it is. And this is written by Bob Proctor. So if you are interested in this, your exact ratio of how you get compensated is based off of three things: the need for what you do, your ability to do it, and how easily it is to replace you, right? So if you think of somebody that doesn't get paid very much, it's typically because they're very easily replaceable. Like you're talking about somebody that's a teacher, right? And it's not that teachers are not valuable, but there's so many people that can teach to 30 kids. There's a lot less people that can teach to 1,000 kids at a time, or to entertain 500 people, or 10,000 people, or 45,000 people, or
Mm.
millions of people across the globe. So even though their skill is very honed and crafted, their ability to share that skill with a larger audience determines how easily replaceable they are and how much value they bring, and it correlates to how much they get paid. So you think of somebody that's like running a jackhammer,
Mm-hmm.
that's hard, heavy work, right? But
Mm.
it doesn't require any brain energy, or for the most part, anybody can, it's going to hurt their body, but anybody can do physical labor. Not anybody can think with their mind and add value, especially to a larger and larger audience.
Mm.
So when I think about applying this and the universal law of karma and attraction, I think if I go to a place and I add value, I might not receive it back from somebody at that event, but the universe will eventually make sure that it circles back to me.
Oh,
So
so true.
it's kind of a perfect way to live life. And when you go to an event or anything that you do in life, if you're just trying to help people, then the universe will get behind you and help you. But when you think to yourself, like, here's a spiritual lesson that I kind of learned. I thought that, like, because I was interested in cancer research and helping the world learn how to cure cancer through naturopathic, non-profitable kind of things, that the universe would automatically help me. And I found that that's not true at all, right? Because you have to go and put yourself out there and help and add value. And I know we keep on saying adding value, but you have to put yourself in a situation where you're making impact. And it's not just like, if you think about, oh, yeah, I could do it, all of a sudden people are going to back you. You have to take the action, the
So
inspired
true.
action to do things, right?
So true.
And, back to your questions, like, how do you approach a conference, or how do you approach doing this business? You just make friends, and you don't stress about whether or not you're going to make a connection that's going to do business with you. And that's the way you should do anything. And I think one of the quotes that I sent you, you asked me to send you some quotes earlier. And I'm like, how you do anything is how you do everything, is one of the quotes that I sent you. Right. So
Yes, yes, you did, and
if
I mean, you're exactly what you described on that answer, because going back to how you and I met, it was exactly that. You were just a friendly person who didn't even put a lot of attention to your podcast. It was more like, oh, let me, like, but what do you do? But what do you do? And then I'm like, no, but what do you do? So it's like, oh my goodness, here comes another one. Like, I love it because we're just focused on learning more about each other from a genuine level, not from a business level. And people oftentimes feel that when they're asked that question, it's because the follow up question will be, when can we get on a call because we should do business together. No, it's just
Yeah.
like
It's
just
it's
getting to know someone.
it's almost sad. Like when you in this particular networking event, it's a family office club event, and I think those guys, some of them, have been so bombarded with so many sales pitches that they can't even pull the wall down to make friends with people, and it can make it challenging to connect with some of those guys, especially if they're like snobby or ultra rich or other things. And God bless them for all the value that they created to get to that point. But if you're, trying to sell, you're already at a dead end street, because you're never going to break through that wall.
Mhm.
I mean, like, you have to really stand out, and I don't think that there's a way to really genuinely connect with somebody and
Mhm.
make friends with them if you're selling something, right? So that's never my intention. I
Very
mean,
true.
in the back of my mind, it is my business, but how can I go in there and help somebody? Because I know if I help a lot of people, eventually it'll circle back.
I love it. Now, we have a question from Joe Slaughter. I'm sorry, I'm butchering your last name, Joe.
Just say Joe.
Joe S, my friend Joe S from LinkedIn. He's asking, what's your first advice for raising capital to a business that doesn't expect the investors are like pretty much interested, because as a founder, your first thought is to build, not to raise. Like, what's an advice?
Okay, so that's two. I think I have two answers for that. The first one is something that Wayne Dyer likes to say, which is, in order to accomplish something, you must first expect it of yourself. So, part two of the way that I want to answer this is, I am a build to rent subdivision developer, and I'm not good at building houses. I'm good at like hanging out with people and making friends and networking. And the guys that I partner with, they're very good at building. So what did they do, right? So they got one guy that built 200 houses and another guy that was incredible at working with the city and acquiring land. That they got together, they formed a syndication company. They didn't know how to raise capital, so they came to us, and we didn't know how to build houses. So we created a business partnership. That's exactly what you should consider, or maybe better said, one way that I would invite you to approach your business is, maybe you can find somebody that provides equity and intrigue them with your business model. If you have a solid business plan or business model, whatever it may be, whether it's development or, commercial real estate, or making movies, or anything, artificial intelligence, or building robots, or Bitcoin, if you can stand behind your business plan with so much conviction that you would bring your mother into that business, then you just got to find somebody that can help you with the marketing, with the capital raising. And that sounds simplistic in concept, but these guys that raise money, they're not hanging out on every street corner. However, you can find them if you know where to look. For example, like, I used to have this limiting belief that multifamily partners didn't grow on trees. And then I started my show, and I realized that they actually do grow on trees. In fact, on anybody's podcast, the multifamily syndicator or multifamily whatever is always given their contact information at the end. They may not hang out on every street corner, but if I can find that little place, that little niche where they all hang out, then it's just like there's a whole bunch of them there. So same thing with this, right? You can join the family office club or some other group, or go figure out some kind of like networking scene that people are a part of, whether that's like social groups, or like I have a buddy who was an ex basketball star, and he bought a Porsche, and he has no social media, no online presence, no website, and he just joined the Porsche club, and he raised like multiple millions of dollars from the Porsche club, just because he had a Porsche and he loved Porsches and just like talking to people. So without any social media, without any marketing, without any automations, without any tools, without any technology, if you know where to connect with people that have Porsches, or you have whatever it is that you're interested in, go try and take that approach. So that's probably a little bit of a long-winded answer, but that would be
I
my
love
approach.
I love it. And I will add one more example to, because what you shared with us about the Porsche story. It's very similar to the TV show that I am an associate producer. So America's Real Deal had a very successful season one last year. I joined at the end when we had the premiere. So I introduced, rather interviewed the business owner celebrities on the red carpet. And one of our celebrities is Janice Brian Howard. She's worth $3.4 billion today. First African American to turn a $1,500 business into a $3.4 billion business. And America's Real Deal did not have the marketing, did not have that word of mouth referrals to the point where, oh wow, we better be on this show because this is phenomenal. Like this is the beginning. But when you have someone of that caliber believing in the show and coming on the show before it even existed, it's exactly what you're saying. You don't necessarily need to have a very strong presence in order for you to send the right message to the right people. And when you speak with passion and when you speak with transparency, those people will believe in your business, will believe in your business idea, and come along and lift you and elevate you to the next level. So I am a big believer of that. And when I hear a lot of not pushback, but when I'm out there raising human capital, because I'm in the human capital raising in addition to the financial capital raising, I am in the business of how many business owners can I sit at the table with the executive producers. So these are the human capital that comes into the show, and how many investors, and then those become our angel investors and ambassadors, and more people get to hear about it. But if you hear about America's Real Deal, it's not like we have a big social presence out there, and yet we were on Fox Business. We were selected for syndication with one season. We had a phenomenal season one, and we were getting ready for season two. Can we do better with the marketing? Absolutely. But is it a showstopper because we don't have it? Absolutely not. So for anyone out there, I would highly recommend that you glue yourself to the Rubens of the world, who are working very hard and are connecting in a genuine way, and there's hope. That's all I'm going to say. There's hope. And you hear this word a lot, capital raising, you're like, oh my god, I don't know the first thing. Well, the first thing is show up. That's the first thing, in my opinion. Just show up. And I love that answer very much, Ruben. It's very much.
Conviction and confidence, it will take you very far. However, it will only take you so far. What I would say, here's when I see people coming up in my industry, in the multifamily space, I see occasionally some people, I mean, particularly people that have limiting beliefs, they want to associate with people that are at the same level as them. So like you'll see like these younger people or these newer people, and they'll find a partner that has a different skill set than them. Like one's a builder, or one's an analyst, or one's an underwriter, and another one's like a marketer, or another one's a capital raiser kind of guy. And they get together, but neither of them have really a track record or experience. And for the multifamily guys, like in order to breach and get into the industry, there's only one way that I really know of, which is to partner with somebody who has already done it before. So as I mentioned this kind of philosophy, I'm talking specifically about multifamily syndicators, right? If you've never done a multifamily deal and nobody in your family has ever purchased, a $20 million property, the only way you're going to convince anybody to do business with you is if you leverage the track record of somebody who's already done it. And I tell the same thing to aspiring fund managers. Instead of like, hey, you've done a couple of deals, but you launch your first fund, and then the investor response and sentiment is going to be, well, how many of these funds have you launched? So it's the same kind of thing, right? Like, don't launch your first fund. There's very few people that have success doing that. What I would recommend is go and partner with somebody who's already a fund manager. Just the same way I would say, don't try and do a multifamily syndication by yourself. Partner with somebody who's already done a multifamily syndication. And for the listener, I forget the name. Was it Sam? No, it was Joe S. Right? And then I would say, like, whatever business you have, go and partner with somebody who's already incredibly successful at your business. And that may mean that you have to share some of your business equity with that person, but it's going to take you so much farther, so much faster, that I
Mm,
would highly recommend taking that approach, because you can be as convicted and as confident as you want, but people are still going to want social proof, and they're going to want to know that you are a successful jockey and you can ride that horse and be a good steward of their money. Whatever business it is that you're doing, they're going to want to be able to trust that you have the experience to do it, not just trust you as a person, but trust you as a businessman. It's the two parts.
mm, which trust in you as a person comes first, because how you do anything is how you do everything. Now, I'm curious about this picture. What's up with this
Oh,
picture?
so that's a composite photo of me standing on top of a pole and jumping off a pole and grabbing a trapeze. I'm
And
about, I don't know, 30 or 40 or 50 feet up in the air.
what were you
Um,
thinking? Were you thinking?
I was trying to look cool. Actually, I was wearing my sunglasses, and I was like, I'm gonna do this. Like, I just attempted to visualize, like, I'm gonna look cool. I'm gonna do it. But this is a personal development course, and then this is a high ropes
Mm,
outdoor course that's designed to kind of express that you're capable of more than you really think that you're capable of doing.
wow.
So I climbed up this pole, stood on it. There's nothing that's holding me in place. There's like a wire that's preventing me, if I fall, like, it won't let me like fall straight to the ground, but there's nothing keeping me there. I'm perfectly vertical on top of a telephone pole that's got a spinning plate. So as you're grabbing it, it's like moving, and then I was able to balance and then turn around on this spinning plate and then jump. And then I thought that I was like, that trapeze is too far, but I just went for it anyways. And then I think, so focused on trying to look cool that I didn't grab it correctly. So I ended up looking worse. So my lesson there in that photo is, like, stop trying to look cool and just, like, do it, like, do what you're
Now,
capable of.
how much pushback did you get from your wife with this decision?
This is like 15 years ago. I just thought it was a
Um,
fun photo. I like to talk about personal development, and this is like right where I was leaving that kind of like party phase of my life and starting to get into development and like pushing away all of the bad circle of influence from my life and starting to realize that, like, I needed to surround myself with like intelligent people or people that were on the path of entrepreneurship or personal development in order to get the things that I wanted. I started having those realizations at this event and through the coursework at this particular company, which was called PSI Seminars. And it was kind of like a breakthrough little phase of my life, I think between '06 and '08, that still I'm still learning from, right? It's those lessons, they don't stop. You have to continue to apply them and learn and get stronger from them, like 15 years later, right?
15 years later, 50 years later, we will always be learning, and that's a blessing. Now, I you sent me this other quote, and I'm stuck on it, and I really need you to let me know your perspective on it. You say, "We don't see things as they are; we see them as we are." This is
Ooh.
an acid. So,
Yeah.
what's up with that quote? Why do you like it?
So because I think a lot of times we try to see the world through the eyes of other people. In fact, a lot of times we do things based off of the values of other people. And when we're trying, I think, to find our way in the world, we don't even realize that we're seeing the world through unique eyes that are ours. And when we see, like, Migena, like, I can, instead of seeing you as separate and distinct, I'm actually you. I'm connected to you. We're all part of the same universe. It's like, I don't know if you ever heard this quote: the arms of a branch would be foolish, or let's see, how does it go? The arms of a tree that fight with each other are foolish because they're part of the same tree, right? So, like, this, we are a part of the same tree, humanity, and like our ego gets in the way because our ego has a bunch of false concepts. It says things like you are what you are, you are what you have, you are what you do, you are what others think of you, you are
Mm,
separate from the things that you want, you are separate from other people, and you are separate from God.
mm,
And like if you can kind of look at that quote, and it says we don't see things the way they are, we see them as we are, we start to realize that we are the same things that we're seeing. So like if you can start to see yourself in the people, then you might in some cases treat them a little bit better, right? Because there's a lot of people that are rude or whatever. But I
we all
think that that
resist.
quote stands out to me because it's very poetic, and I there's a portion of me that really likes poetry. I spent part of my college studying Spanish literature, and um, there's a little bit of that spreads to the English portion of my brain. So when I look at like old authors and French, like she was a French Cuban poet from like the 1940s, and that I don't know how I found her quotes and some of her material, but she was very renowned and well known. Her name is Anais. I'm not even sure if I pronounce her name right. It's Anais Nin,
An
and
Esnin, yeah, an Esnin. I read it in Albanian, so it's a nice nin.
yeah,
That's how I would read it. But yeah, I love that one because it makes you think. You're like, wait a second, that is so true. That is so true. And I love that you love quotes because I love quotes too. Now, how are we with time? We did start a little later. It's
I,
almost
I'm
3 o'clock. You're good for
I'm
another
good.
10, 15
Man.
minutes?
Whatever you want. I'll go. Like I remember like sometimes on my podcast, typically they're like 45 minutes, and like I had this personal development guy, and we got into it about every little kind of nuance and aspect of peak
Mhm.
performance and spiritual connection, and we went like an hour and 45 minutes.
I
I'm
love
not
it.
kidding you.
I
So
love it.
like I'm flexible as long as there's nothing that's pressing, which I don't have anything to do today except for let my voice heal from my sickness.
Awesome.
I'm happy to kick it with you for as long as you want.
I love it. You're the best. I appreciate it. Now, I'm curious about your last name. What's the origin of your last name?
So my grandfather was from Alsace-Lorraine, which is right on the border between France and Germany, and he was there probably at the beginning of World War I or World War II, and the territories kept on switching sides. So I'm not sure if it's a German or French name, but
Depends
he
on
got,
the day.
yeah, it depends on the day, but he decided that this is too much for him. So he left to the United States, became a citizen, then went down to Mexico and was practicing medicine down there. So that's where he met my grandmother. They had a kid, and that was my father. And there's like, what's crazy is like my grandfather lived like in the 1800s. My father was 57 when no, he was 50 when he had me with my mom, and then his father was like 60 plus when he had him. So like my grandfather's like 110 years older there, or would have been older than me.
Wow. Talk about study longevity, huh? Now I know why. Now I know the root.
So I do. I'm really big focused on like I want to live a long time. So I'm pretty intense about like extending my telomeres and doing hypothermic conditioning, and really like I easily get frustrated by like my eating habits, but like this year I've been on a rampage. Like, hey, let's get in the gym, let's work out, and let's get healthy because like I'm almost 50. I know I look a lot younger than that.
Are you serious?
Yeah. Yeah. And I have a feeling that I'm gonna live to like 121 is like
Oh
my
my
goal.
God. Well, we have to bring you back on the show where all we speak about is how do we all look like Ruben at 50? Because you look like you're 22. I mean, seriously, it's insane. Oh my goodness. It's genes. Absolutely, it's genes. And also how you feel
It's how you
entitled.
think for sure.
Anytime
Remember, my father died when he was 57. That's only like 7 more years of life if I was to follow his path.
oh, I'm so sorry. Now, your favorite food, because I know you're very frustrated with eating habits, but we want to
No, I
know.
have been. I'm actually good now. I've been on ketogenic. There's this thing, I don't know if you've ever heard of it, since we're talking all kinds of random topics.
We are. This is
Have you
why.
ever heard of autophagy? So autophagy is this process where if you fast or intermittently fast long enough, like for more than 24 hours, what happens is you have all these proteins like collagen, which is what causes wrinkles, crow's feet. If those don't get replaced, what happens is some of those proteins over time, they kind of, instead of dying, they just kind of hang out, and then they get kind of beat up and old. And this process of autophagy is like when you starve yourself, like your cells get hungry and they eat each other. So they eat the old cells first, and that rejuvenates you. So you have all brand new, fresh cells instead of like these old kind of dying, lingering cells that are like causing crow's feet. So starving yourself actually is the main driver of this process called autophagy. And if you're interested in longevity, I would highly recommend studying Dr. Berg and some of the things that he talks about with autophagy. It's a very well discussed topic for the anti-aging community. But if you believe it or not, if you starve yourself for a couple of days, it makes you younger. And
So,
our bodies are designed that way. They're not designed to eat every 30 minutes for your whole life. You have
no,
to,
but
like our ancestors used to go many days without food, believe it or not, and it made them become stronger and more adapt to survive.
um, I am very familiar with a process, but not intentionally. Meaning, I've never studied, I never read about it, but I am someone that could go on all day and night without eating, and I actually don't eat, and I get hungry, but I don't eat, and everybody goes, "How do you survive?" And I'm like, And then when I eat like a bird, and I eat everything. I'm talking about from ice cream to cakes to you name it, to apple, oh my god, jelly that I make and all that kind of stuff. But now that you mention it, I'm like, wow, I never understood how that works. But
It's keeping you younger.
wow, that
Yeah.
is insane. But yes, we're not designed to eat every half an hour. That every time we are hungry, we just gotta keep adding more
You
food into
you
our
can eat
systems.
whatever you want to as long as you do it in moderation, right?
Moderation.
Like, I
Yeah.
think my problem is I'm not very good at moderation. However, I have some training that when I apply, I can get healthy relatively quickly. So that's where I'm at right now.
Mm. So now, Ruben, when you saying that you are creating this program to teach others, a mentorship program to teach others how to
Mhm.
capital raise.
Man,
Uh,
talk about breaking through your fears. It's scary. Like, you think launching a podcast is scary? Try becoming a teacher that's teaching people, a mentor that's teaching people how to become salesmen in a space that's probably the hardest sales profession on the planet, because you're asking people to give away a portion of their life savings, right? And like, how are you even qualified to do that, Ruben? Right? So it's like, I think you have to understand this process of, you have to give yourself authority to become an author. You have to give yourself authority to do the things that you want to do. And even if you don't know how to do it, you can see what other people have done before you and follow their footsteps. Right?
Now,
That's the big key.
has this launched yet as a program?
No, it's launching next month, actually. We've been working on it. So like, I hired these guys, these coaches that teach coaches how to be coaches.
I love
And
it.
and
I'm
and
not
they
one of them. Full
yeah,
disclosure, he
and
did
and
not
they
hire me. Shame on
and
him.
they wanted me to launch my program immediately. And they're like, "We know some of your friends, and look at what we just had this particular 25-year-old kid. He pulled in $450,000 in sales in his first 90 days." And like, I'm thinking to them, like, I know this guy. If he can do it, I know I can do it. So let's do it, right? But then I started to see what they were doing, and they're just like, "Hey, just launch a program. We'll teach you how to sell and close people and all that stuff." And I'm just like, well, I like, if I'm going to do this, I want to be like really proud of the stuff that I put together. And like, I wasn't willing to do that. So I've taken the last like 10 months to find some partners that help me kind of feel more confident about like all of us, we can create a really high quality product. And we brought Richard Wilson in to include the Family Office Club in our capital raising mentorship program. And now we feel like we have all the tools, the skills, the automations, the marketing, the salesmanship, everything that we can share. We can build a community. We can do everything that I really feel like I would be proud of, or I am proud of already before it's even launched. And then we can share this with the world and help people raise 10 times more money, even people that have raised more money than me. Like there's family offices that are coming at me and they're just like, hey, I've raised 20 or $40 million and I'm ready to scale, but I don't have a website or automations or technology or social media presence. And they're like, can you help me with that? Like you have this great brand and platform. And I like started realizing like, just because I haven't raised as much as them doesn't mean that I can't provide them with the tools to help them scale to the next level. Right. So I'm very excited about what we're getting ready to produce.
So if people were to go into the capitalraisershow.com, is that the best platform for them to sign up for the program, or do you have something else as a landing page or as a funnel?
Yeah, the website's not launched yet. They can once it's ready, they can find it at capitalraisershow.com. That'll be one of the places that we market it as one of the funnels, right? And then there's going to be the actual name of the website, capitalraiser.com, which is not launched. It's in the works right now. But like I'm not trying to sell Capital Raiser mentorships. People will automatically find me if they're attracted to that. And I would say like if you want to hang out with me, Capital Raiser isn't necessarily the best place. I really have a lot of fun on LinkedIn. I'm really engaging with a broad net audience, talking about all kinds of stuff. You obviously know I'm very interested in health and business hacks and personal hacks and life hacks and just, philosophy and sharing ideas. So I'm trying to follow the footsteps of some of these great thought leaders and content creators that, like Grant Cardone, like he's kind of controversial, but I'll use him as an example because everybody knows him. They know that he's in real estate, right? Everybody knows that he doesn't talk about real estate on his LinkedIn. Have you noticed that?
Mm-hmm.
He talks about like, this is how you break through your fears.
Mindset.
This is how you do, this to life hack, right? And it resonates with such an incredibly huge audience.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, well, God, like if I'm always talking about build to rent and multifamily, like I'm going to, resonate with a small audience. But if I really want to get a big following, this whole concept of like, can I, reach out to and resonate with a bigger audience? And how do you do that? Well, you talk about stuff that's general, right? Like, how do you
as human?
Yeah, exactly. So
origin.
I'm kind of learning what other thought creators and content, creators are doing and trying to follow their footsteps. Because just like I said, I think a couple of times on this show, you can always follow the steps of other people that have done it. Like I've never built a house before, but my partners have, right? So I can follow their footsteps, and they've never raised equity, so they can come to me and I can help them with that particular aspect, and we can join forces. So like it's this whole union of skill sets, but the whole idea of like connecting on LinkedIn is very appealing to me because I'm not just selling stuff on there. I'm like genuinely trying to like connect with a large audience that may not be interested in my business whatsoever. And I'm like, I'm totally cool with that because I like making friends. That's the way I was in high school too, right?
You are definitely very approachable, and I think LinkedIn, even though the reputation is that it's extremely professional, I connect.
That's why it's easy to stand out on there, because people are just
Yeah.
like so business focused, and if you're just like a real human being, people love that.
Absolutely. Now, who should sign up for your mentorship program? For which group of people is this ideal?
So we're open to working with people that are above us and below us, new people and experienced people. But I think our target avatar is like somebody that's raised like $1 million that wants to scale to either 2 or 5 or 10 million.
Okay.
Right. So somebody that wants to magnify and like 5x or 10x their capital raising, and they need some help to do it. Those are the ideal clients
Mm,
that we could work with, right? So
I love
we
it.
can't take people that are absolutely brand new, but if those guys, I think a lot of times if they don't have the drive and energy and they think they can just throw money at a program and become capital raisers, like we wouldn't even accept you, because that's not going to be beneficial to anybody. It's going to lower our batting average and our track record if we can't help you. And then why would we bring you in if you're not going to put in the work, right? So
But
it's
you're
like,
also protecting them. You're actually protecting them from
for
themselves,
sure.
because it's like we've been there, done that, and we know who belongs here. And that's why I asked that question, because there are so many programs out there uh, created by phenomenal humans. And I personally am part of many different masterminds, because they all bring something unique to the table. But in one mastermind, I am a beginner because it's an area where I am just beginning to study, and those masterminds exist. And now when I ask you about the program you're offering, I love that it's extremely intentional, and you don't want to waste anyone's time, because it's like under promising and over delivering versus the other way around, and everybody gets hurt
Yeah.
and disappointed. So
Let,
I'm excited for the capital
it's
raising
gonna be fun.
mentorship, honestly. And it's so much needed, because one of the most common questions I get asked is, where do you find your investors? How do you raise capital? Why are you successful? What is it that you actually save? Like, how do you say it? What do you do? How
Mm-hmm.
do you do all of these things? And I'm like, oh my God. And I'm like, it's an art, and it's like a lot of work.
It's a
So
lot of work.
it's a lot of work, but it's also extremely rewarding. And I am looking forward to learning more about it and signing up, and bring my friends on board as well, because
Wow,
we
that'd be
have
cool.
we absolutely, because look, we can be the best deal finders in the world. We can be very cool friends, but at the end of the day, when you have a plant and you don't have the water and the soil to nurture it, that plant will die. So we can find that apartment building, but if the capital is not there, then you can't feed it. That, I think capital is oxygen for us
100%.
to don't steal this. This is my quote. I'm just saying.
No,
I'm just saying
yeah,
myself.
no, I'm in full blown agreement with you. It is the lifeblood
It is.
so you have to take care of your investors extremely well. If you want to dry up incredibly quick, don't take care of your investors, and you'll see how long you last in this business,
Oh,
right?
you'll be forgotten before you were.
You'll bleed out immediately.
I love it. Now, we're going to wrap this up. I would love for you to share one strong message to everyone that's hearing us right now in the world, regardless of their walk of life. It doesn't have to be real estate related, podcast related, just from heart to heart, mind to mind, spirit to spirit. Like, what would something that Ruben would say to all of us, so we can carry it with us and help us when we
Mm.
are in a space we may not want to be?
Yeah. So there's going to be some audience members, and me a year or two ago, I wouldn't have liked to have received this message that I'm about to share with you, because for a long period of time, I did not want to become an entrepreneur. I was afraid of the success, not because I didn't want the limelight. I wanted the attention. What I didn't want to do was work, like feel like I'm trapped working incredibly hard and like having to outduel and challenge and be like the hardest worker in the room. So I spoke to a personal development coach, and they're just like, Ruben, no, you got this all wrong. Like, what if I told you you could work less and impact more? And I was like, oh, that sounds like that. Oh, like, that's incredible. I actually got teary about it. I'm like, that's not possible, is it? They're like, yeah, I've done it in my pharmaceutical business. But I just recently read a book earlier this year that I think transformed my whole evolution of the way that I'm approaching business. And it's a book by Napoleon Hill called How to Own Your Own Mind. where Napoleon Hill interviews Andrew Carnegie about the most successful entrepreneurs in the history of mankind. And this is what he said, and what I really had a hard time swallowing this, which was every single person that has ever had, like $100 million plus success in any form, any aspect of any business has always been incredibly singular of focus. And they've always not just worked smart, which is like delegating, automating, and eliminating, right? Because that's what's really going to help you scale. But they also worked extremely hard and they had a chief aim and definiteness of purpose, creative imagination, but they had to work incredibly hard. And I was just like, oh my God, do I really have to do that? And I finally bought in. I'm just like, yeah, you know what? It's worth it, because if I do that, I'm going to become the greatest version, or at least a higher version of what I've been so far in my life. And I'm sharing this message with other people, that, and it may not sound fun, right? I'm reading a book right now, or listening to it, better said, You Can't Hurt Me, or it's called Can't Hurt Me by David Goggins. And it talks about this dude that had a really rough upbringing, and then he became like this incredibly impervious to like Navy SEAL training, and like no matter what was thrown at him, he was going to get it. And he talks about this exact same mindset. Like, you have to be like resilient in the face of like all kinds of stuff that's being thrown at you, and like people yelling at you and like forcing you to be in the ocean. Or, in the case of the entrepreneur, which is really the lesson that I'm giving you here, is like, you can't just mess around. And this I'm going to bring it back around to the capital raising mentorship program. Like, we don't want you if you're just going to kind of like pussyfoot around. Like, we want people that are really going to try, and you're only going to get out of the program what you put into it. And this is for the mentorship program, but it's for anything in life, for any business. You're only going to get out of your business what you put into it. So I want to leave that message resonating with people, because I think a lot of us want to dance around that and figure out a way to just kind of be soft about it. And you can be somewhat successful doing that. But if you really want to achieve the maximum success that you as a human being are capable of, you have to give everything that you got. And you have to be, and I'm not saying don't balance. Like, everybody has to have balance of vacations and all of that stuff. But when you get back from vacation, work your freaking tail off.
Well, and I also feel that when you add the balance, I think that's where you are a lot more successful, because you're actually nurturing your mind to do more, to do better. Because people oftentimes think that if they go 24/7, that's when they're actually productive. But that's quite the opposite. I feel having those mini breaks, a long weekend, or actually joining a networking event and just have fun for a weekend and meet some cool people, you'd be surprised how healing that is and how empowering that is. So I am all for working extremely hard, but also eating everything you want in moderation, and plant yourself in environment you don't recognize, so you can then come on the other side a lot stronger, and pretty much be the best capital raiser, the best parent, the best son, daughter, whoever you are in the world. And I love that message so much, Ruben. I love that message so much.
It's hard for me to swallow. Like, I still just think about it, and I'm just like, oh, I don't want to do it. But I know that, like, I think that's part of like my calling, is like, I have to figure out how to get the most out of myself to get true human fulfillment.
Mm,
Because like, I can't, I require a lot to be fulfilled. And if I'm not doing something that really has the impact that I'm capable of doing or
mm.
creating, or, inspiring people, like if this goofy kid that like, was raised with no dad and by a bunch of women, and like, like, if he can do it, like, anybody can do it. Right. But part of it is working hard and working smart. And that's not a message that I wanted to receive even a couple of years ago, to be
Mm,
completely honest.
I love it. Now, where do we find you outside of your website?
Yeah, like, just, I would say LinkedIn. Like, if you just want to hang out, like, you can, my calendar is on there, my phone number is on there. I'm not hard to find. I'm on all the social media, but the one that I engage most on is LinkedIn. That's where I resonate with people the most.
I love it. And are you accepting new guests on your show, on the podcast?
So we have a long wait list. Sometimes I get as many as like 20 requests in one day, and like I obviously can't handle that kind of volume. But I'm not I'm picky, but as long as you meet the requirement of like you've raised capital, I'm pretty sure you could get on my show at some point in time.
I love it. Well, I'm excited for everyone who got to meet Ruben from a different angle because he's just an awesome person. In addition to a phenomenal capital raiser, and his show, it's amazing. I was honored to be a guest on the show. Of course,
That was fun.
I showed up 15 minutes late because that's just who McGenna is. McGenna is late everywhere, but
How you do anything is how you do everything.
and this is why I just started lately on the multifamily because I feel like I showed up late for the party, but guess what? I made it to the party because sometimes it's not when you show up; it's actually how you do the exit. And I feel like for some of that, as it may take a little bit longer, not to justify my being late, but what are you actually doing with the time that you have there? Maximize, because I guarantee you, there's many of you out there who are the first to show up at these events, but you don't walk away with as much as I walk away. So don't let that stop you. You may be a little late to the party. You may be a little late to the capital raising game. You may be a little late to signing up for that next mastermind. Don't let that stop you. Work on it. Get better. Take massive action into the future. Be on time. And this is a message I'm giving Migena today.
Yeah.
But don't let that stop you because, Ruben is almost 50, looking like 20.
I'm 48. I'm
I mean,
48.
seriously, Ruben is 48, looking like 22. And now he's just creating this mentorship program about capital raising. And there's a lot of people out there who may tell Ruben, oh, this was done 20 years ago. Or you're late to the party. Ruben is like, well, I'm here now, and it's okay to be late to the party.
That's my parting message too, is just like because I've seen some people that got into the business the same time I did, and they own like $1 billion worth of assets. And when I try to compare myself to them, it's so deflating. And here's something that's really beautiful: is like everything happens on God's timing. Like if you have two roses and one blooms before the other one, the second rose is not crying and just like, oh, how come I haven't bloomed yet? It just naturally blooms when it's time to bloom, right?
I love it.
So if you can just stick it out and not compare yourself to others and be resilient no matter how long it takes, like me, because I'm like 50 and I'm just barely getting into the game now, right? So like just keep doing it, and if you're not ready to go like full force and full maximum throttle, like I'm trying to now, like that's okay, because maybe at a later point, like me, I'm blossoming a little bit later in life. Maybe you're like that too. Just don't compare yourself to other people is like my parting message, because it's so
Oh,
defeating. It's so
so
defeating.
good. So good. Those are beautiful words. I am truly honored, Ruben, for your time. It's definitely non-refundable, that's for sure. We'll never get back this time, but I hope that whoever was listening to us today had fun, because we like to keep these conversations fun, and I'm always interested to getting to know the human aspect of every single friend that's on the show, because they're not guests, they are friends. Some are newer than others, but at the end of the day, I want to know Ruben's favorite color, and now we know his age, and we know his favorite books, and who Ruben is when Ruben is not on that. He's not wearing that professional hat. And Ruben, what is your favorite color, by the way?
It's in my logos. Pretty much everything that I do is that's all
Blue?
dark blues. So what
Mm,
I call celestial, right? So
maybe.
I'm very nocturnal.
I love it. Blue is one of my favorite colors, and we have that one in common as well. Well, thank you so much, Ruben. Grateful for your presence, grateful for your wisdom, and grateful for what you are creating for so many out there, because we need to learn on a daily basis. And capital raising, it's absolutely at the top of my list because that's what I do on a daily basis without even realizing. But when you learn from the experts, you can go places bigger and faster. So you kind of in this accelerated program, and that's why the experts come together and create this mastermind. So you need to take advantage. So keep us posted on LinkedIn where we can find you, and how you're doing and when we can sign up, and yeah, and let as many people know about it as possible. And we need to help each other, we need to support each other, and this is why this show is to highlight you and your journey, and looking forward to a future podcast with you in the near future to show us and tell us about the progress of the capital
I
raising.
appreciate it.
Absolutely. And with that being said, we are going to end this call, which means I'm going to end broadcast, and I'm sure I'll see you on WhatsApp, on LinkedIn, and you know where to find me, Gena. I'm everywhere. Oh my goodness. Grant Cardone taught me well. Be omnipresent. This is the AskMiGena.com, a website designed by Brand Beat, the dear Shafat, my friend, was supporting us earlier today. He'll be a guest very soon. Please show me some love and subscribe to my very, very, very light YouTube channel. And this is the Ask Me Gena show. If you'd like to be a guest, raise your hand, please. It's not always me reaching out to you. You also have to reach out for yourself because I do it every single day. And Ruben is a perfect example of that. I am on Instagram and I am in all these other social media platforms. DM me and let's change the world together, one person at a time. And thank you again so much for your time. Have a great weekend.
It's been an honor.
Thank you, Ruben.